In this video, let's implement two-way data passing between the parent and the child component using v-model directive. Our dear client once again proposes a new feature request. The editor user should be able to modify the blog content. Of course, the blog post component can emit this event with the new blog content value and let the app component make the update. Vue provides a shortcut for this. That is one of our old friends, v-model. v-model can be used on a component to implement a two-way data binding. Let's go to VS Code. Now I'm on branch Vue Components Events. This is the branch in the last video. So let's create a new branch based on this branch. Let's call it git branch Vue Components v-model. And then git switch to Vue Components v-model. So basically, we copy the code of branch Vue Components Events to here. Note that now we're on Vue Components v-model branch. So let me start the project. Our goal here is to make the content of the blog post editable. So we should put this in an input box. But first, let's make a modification. Instead of passing an entire post using vbind, let's pass them one by one. Recall that a post has ID, blog post title, and blog post content. So let's pass them one by one. ID is post.id. Blog post title, post.blog post title right here. And blog post content is post.blog post content. Now, as you can see, there's no change here. We passed the three props one by one. As I said, our goal here is to make this blog post content editable. So that means we should put this one in an input box. So let's go to the blog post component. Right now, the blog post content is displayed in H4, so it is not editable. Instead, we should put it in an input box. But here, let's keep line 7. And under this H4, let's define a div. And inside div, let's use input. And also, let me put a prompt here. Modify the content. So here in the input box, we should display the current blog post content. Okay, but for now, it is empty. So what should we do? Solution 1, we can use props. Because right now, this is a prop. So here, we can use value is equal to blog post content. All right, so this input box is pretty small. So let's go down here. Input. Let's make the width 100% of the parent. Then here we can use @input event. So whenever user input something, that is changing the content of this blog, then here in the input, we should emit a custom event. For example, blog post content update. We should emit that event to the parent component of blog post, which is app. And here, this app component will listen to that custom event using the syntax add blog post content update event, and then handle it here. Find that post in this array and set the blog post content to a new content. I'm sure many students already know that, but that's tedious. Vue provides a shortcut for this, that is v-model. So let me show you how to do that. So first, let's come back here and delete this part. We're not going to use props to pass blog post content from parent to child. Instead, very simple, let's use v-model. So all I need to do is to change this v-bind to v-model. Okay, then let's go to blog post. How does the blog post receive that v-model value? First, let's go down here in the script, and let me introduce you the third macro function, or the third define function, define model. Just like define props and define emits, you do not have to import it. It is a macro function. And here, we're going to define a variable, let blog post content to receive the return value of this define model method. And we copy this name, and here we can use it in the input. V-model. Do you still remember how to use a v-model in an input? Paste here. Refresh. All right. As you can see, we have the content in the input box. So here, blog post content is no longer a prop. So let me delete this. So there are only two props. Okay, refresh. Okay, next, let's test. So let's make some modification to the content. For example, let me delete this word person. All right, as you can see, this H4, the blog post content also changes. And I can change more or add more content here. Hello world. Okay, so this feature is done. Okay, so let me break it here and see it more clearly. A quick summary. On line 28, we define model. Then you can use this blog post content in the template. Now, please note that this blog post content is actually a ref object. It is reactive. That's why if we change it here, then this H4 will also update. Next, let's turn on Vue DevTools. Press F12. First, let me refresh. Okay, Vue. What I'm going to show next is I'm going to delete this word person. So this blog post content is changed in the child component. So I'm asking, what happened to the data in the app? Right here. What happened here? So let's test. Let me delete person. Okay, as you can see, so when this blog post content is mutated by the child component, the blog post component, it causes the parent bound value to be updated as well. Okay, let's do more changes. For example, let's delete everything here. As you can see, the first item in this array, which is defined in app.vue, here gets changed as well. So by using v-model here, it establishes a two-way data passing from parent to child. And if child modifies it, the modification goes back to the parent. How convenient it is. Okay, so let me close this. Refresh. Everything comes back. So if you only want to establish one two-way data binding between parent and the child, this syntax works. v-model, and this is the value. And here, you can use define model to receive and put the value here and use it in the template. No problem. What if you want to establish multiple two-way data bindings or two-way data passing? So for example, now we also want the editor user to modify the title in the child component. So that's easy. Let's change this one to v-model as well. It doesn't work because by default, there can only be one v-model per tag. Well, we can work around it by giving each V- model a name. So for example, here, let's call this blog post title. And for the second one, let's give it a name, blog post content. So this is how we handle multiple V-model two-way bindings. Now, after this modification, let's go back to the child component. So here, when we accept the V- model, we have to tell Vue which V- model we want, because now there are two, blog post title and a blog post content. And here is the syntax. Blog post content. Okay? And let me change this to blog post title. Blog post title. And then let's remove blog post title from the define props. So now it is not a prop. There's only one prop, it is ID, and the other two values are passed in as V- model. And this will create a two-way data passing. All right, so let's test. div modify the title. Here, I should use V- model. This time is blog post title. So this is the first input. It's right here. Here is the second input. It's right here. All right, so let's test. So here I'm going to change this title. So here, question mark, question mark, question mark. And let me modify this one as well. So now in the child component, I can modify the two values, title and content, and that will also affect the data in the parent component, that is in the app. Okay, so recall that V- model has some built-in modifiers like .number, .lazy, .trim. Here, feel free to use them. If you are curious about what happened under the hood, in the official documentation, you can read this section. Component V- model under the hood. As you can see here, define model is just a convenience macro. Under the hood, component V- model, what you just saw in the code demo, is implemented using props and custom events. That is what you learned in the previous two videos, right? So V- model is just a convenience or shorthand. There's really nothing new here. Look at this example here. This is how we implement a two-way data binding between the parent and the child component without using V- model and the define model macro. So here we're using the props. Define props returns props, and props to access the one prop, which is model value. Then on input, it will emit this event with this value, which is the current value in the input. So this is the child component. Then the parent component should listen to this update : model value event and properly handle that to change the value it passed to this prop model value. All right, next, let's go back to VS Code and do a quick summary. In summary, V- model directive can be used on a component to implement a two-way data binding between the parent and child component. It simplifies the process of keeping the UI synchronized with the application data. Next, let me push this branch to GitHub. Component V- model for a two-way data binding. Git push. I hope you learned something in this video. In the next video, let's conclude our data passing between components topic with provide and inject. See you there.